Lexington Parks and Recreation offers a long list of adaptive recreation programs and venues. Accessible activities include archery and art classes, baseball, cooking, dance and drama, golf, horsemanship, baseball, kayaking, and more. And a full list of these activities that we offer can be found under Therapeutic Recreation on the Parks and Rec website. But for this presentation, I was asked to highlight how, as we as landscape architects, incorporate these principles of accessibility and inclusion into our playground design. And, just as a side note, for me as a designer, this is one of the most challenging and rewarding parts of my profession is creating these outdoor play spaces for everyone to enjoy. There are over 60 playgrounds in Lexington maintained by our Parks and Recreation. They are all required to meet the American with Disabilities Act and the Federal Consumer Product Safety Commission for Public Playground Safety and the Public Playground Safety Handbook regulations. But as Jordan mentioned, our goal as designers is to exceed as many of these requirements as set forth by these regulations as possible within the budget provided. And most importantly, we want to meet the needs of the community the project will serve. So now let's take a closer look at some of our playgrounds and the features they have. The first one is at Castlewood Park. This is home to Lexington's therapeutic summer camp for youth ages 6 to 12 of all abilities. As you can imagine, kids of this age, having a fun playground is very important. And so we worked with the camp staff and our therapeutic rec manager to select equipment that focus on a variety of sensory experiences as well as vestibular or motion experiences. And another important aspect of the playground was providing shade. And shade is an accommodation that's critical or can be critical for those individuals who take special medication that causes them to be particularly sensitive to sunlight. So here you can see we use a combination of trees and shade sails over the equipment to achieve this. And, to me, adding the trees or incorporating trees into these spaces is the one natural, tangible layer that completes them. So here you can see some of the pre-engineered equipment at Castlewood. The image on the left is a completely accessible glider that gives the motion of swaying or rocking a vestibular sensory. And you see the molded seats here. That's the direction that this piece rocks back and forth to. And the ramp provides access for a wheelchair to wheel up in the center of that and join in this experience. The image on the right is a stationary roller table whereby individuals lay down on their backs and pull themselves under the bars across the rollers. That stimulates deep muscle pressure, kind of like giving a massage, and it's a tactile experience. The next playground I want to highlight is Jacobson Park Playground. And like all design projects, the site for Jacobson Playground offered both challenges and opportunities. The schematic layout here was created by Element Design, local landscape architects, with Parks design team input. And from the beginning, the site is very unique. It's on a lake, so the team agreed we wanted every visitor to have the opportunity to experience all of the spaces within the playground. So to achieve this, the team used the side elevation change in combination with ramp sidewalks. Then a multi-level play structure was added that was accessible both on the upper and lower levels. So I'll back up a slide here. Here's this 5 to 12 play structure, and here's the accessible sidewalk leading to the ramp to the upper level. And on the right is one of the upper level destinations. As a result of our conscious effort, design effort, this view of the lake can be shared with people, with visitors of all abilities. And you can see also we added monoculars on the rail here to enhance views of the lake. Don't see anything in the lake there in this image, but there are quite a few waterfowl that visit and migrate through our area. So the monoculars are really good at zoning in on those. Other site details we used at Jacobson are changes in color or materials at steps on play equipment to alert individuals with low vision. We also have stroller or wheelchair parking. It's just wider areas within on the sidewalk within the playground area. Also have timeout benches for children who need a rest from the physical or emotional demands of the playground. There's also a perimeter fence to keep safe children on the autism spectrum who are inclined to run when overstimulated. And finally, as you see here in these images, we added some seek and find games for sensory development and natural science education. So throughout the sidewalks, this was very fun to do because I was out there stamping these feet print and the leaf images in the sidewalks when after they were poured. But you can see the sign on the left relates to the images stamped in the concrete. And you can look back at a sign and to get more information on the trees that produce those leaves. And the image on the right here shows ducks, but there's another sign panel that corresponds with all the feet prints of different critters that inhabit the area around the lake. The next park I want to highlight is Valley Park. Valley Park was designed in-house by the Parks and Recreation staff based on community feedback. And the overall concept for this playground was friendship and unity. And it features some pre-engineered accessible play equipment such as this rotating net climber and lots of other ground-based activities. The net climber here, the deck here is at a height where you can transfer from a wheelchair onto that, and it rotates. You have to push it, but it rotates as you can climb. The playground also responds to the desire for intergenerational recreating common in this neighborhood by providing lots of picnic tables and seating in both the center and around the edges. So in addition to accessible seating and equipment, access was greatly improved by the use of the port-in-place safety surface, as Jordan mentioned. It provides a more uniform, firm surface for ease of mobility versus using the mulch, the engineered wood fiber. But it does come with a substantial cost or budget increase. It's something we we have to weigh when we're developing a playground is, the Valley Park playground was built with a grant, so we were able to use PIP throughout, but a lot of our playgrounds don't have that luxury, so we use, as Jordan illustrated, we use the PIP for path of travel to access the different areas that have ADA pieces that are accessible. So I wanted to just highlight there too that, PIP, the cost of the port in place is about $18 a square foot. And the price of the mulch per square foot, it comes priced by the cubic yard, but that translates to about $1 a square foot. So, that can, for us, that can mean the difference in adding another larger play piece, or just, that weighing that against using PIP. And finally, at Valley, we incorporated art into the playground. And it was just another way, another level of inclusion that we used. And based on our theme of friendship and unity, we had students from the local school paint these fence panels that we used throughout the playground. So it's just another way for the children to participate in the playground development at any ability. And the image here on the left is on a seat wall. We also used a local artist who designed the images on that, and also you can see there's a game board on that seat wall as well. This next playground is Shiloh Park Playground. It was another collaboration between Element Design and our planning and design staff. And the main features of the playground are two engineered wood play structures, which were designed by Leathers and Associates and are accessible via ramps and decks, and were built as a community build in 2019. Here's the image on the left here is the 2 to 5 play structure. The site was also designed to offer adaptive swings and wheelchair accessible merry-go-round from well-known playground manufacturers. This image here on the upper right shows the adaptive bucket swings. And they're designed, to allow the users who maybe don't have that core strength or that the strength to hold themselves onto the swing. So they're adaptive in that way. And another swing we like to we try and we enjoy is this tandem swing, which allows a caregiver or another child or parent to swing in tandem with their child in the bucket swing. And here is that accessible merry-go-round, and it has PIP coming into the platform of it, that it comes in flush. So it's a very smooth transition into that. We also used or designed several pieces in the playground by the planning design staff with the sole intention of improving accessibility and promoting inclusion. And this first feature is a wood deck and aluminum channel system for water play. It has 2 accessible water pumps placed at a height that are wheelchair accessible. And then the channels also are at a level that would allow someone to reach over and play in the water. The lower level of the deck on this is designed to be at a height for needed for a child to with partial mobility to transfer out of a wheelchair if they wish, and play on it as well. And playing with water is that tactile experience with significant benefits for those with disabilities. But it's also something we all like to do. You know, kids of all ages like to do this when presented like this in a safe play environment. We also included a playhouse, which can be used by anyone for imaginative play. But it also provides children on the autism spectrum with a place to retreat from overstimulation without drawing attention to the child. And the last component I want to highlight is this music circle, comprised of commercially available instruments made of engineered wood to match the play structure. And music is an auditory stimulation that can also deliver significant benefits to individuals with disabilities. And the circular arrangement of these pieces was very purposeful. You know, what appears through one lens to be just an impromptu jam session is actually a team building exercise, which encourages creativity, negotiation, and cooperation. So that concludes my portion of this presentation. But before I wrap up, I want to say that Parks and Recreation encourages individuals with disabilities to challenge us. And you know, if you see in a city park that the need for better access, or have an idea of how an experience could be made more equitable, you know, please let us know by sending me an email or by sending a message through social media platform of your choice at Lex Kentucky Parks, or by calling 311. So we're also always seeking to learn and grow as designers, and we do this best through conversation with our community. And with that, I am going to turn it back over to Jordan.
We have a question from one of our
attendees. Sure.
The question is, do you find more design challenges with pre-engineered design elements or natural playgrounds?
Well, you know, let's see. It would probably be with a natural play, you know, the challenge there, you know, is developing that natural space. But as designers, for me, especially, I'm not only, you know, I'm creating an overall experience. So it's easy to plug in a pre-engineered piece, but you know, designing the route to that or fitting it into an overall space is also a challenge. So not a real easy answer there. And we don't, you know, like I said, we're designers of the overall space. So I don't know, do Ryan and Jordan, do y'all have anything you want to add to that?
I was going to say the manufacturers have a lot of money to put forward towards understanding all of the legal requirements of the ADA standards. And so it's very easy to kind of default to specifying those pieces of equipment because it takes some of the liability concern off of the designer, because it's really these large playground manufacturing companies, like they kind of take that on because they have engineers, they have testers. So that's kind of the easier route. But and when you kind of initially think like what types of play opportunities can you, like what do we value about natural playgrounds? A lot of the play opportunities are inherently a little bit inequitable in terms of what you can access to do. Like we think about, you know, stepping over logs, we think about climbing up on tree stumps, and those are things that not everybody can participate in. So there are some challenges, but as designers, we're always trying to think about what are the opportunities too, as well. So what Joe is showing in terms of access to water, that would certainly be a natural kind of play element, highly prized and valued. And that's something that everybody can touch and enjoy if you design the site and the systems around the site to make it possible for someone to get up close and touch something. And another thing that comes to mind is one of the great things about natural playgrounds are loose parts and the fact that you get to manipulate your environment or look at it more closely. So something as simple as having a sweet gum tree that has what my kids used to call gumballs as their seeds, like having those fall on the ground, helping someone who might be visually impaired or in a wheelchair go around and hunt down these materials and collect them. And maybe there's a basket that they could hold and touch. Like there are lots of really rich opportunities when we kind of think about, okay, so maybe people with a variety of disabilities can't participate in everything, but that equity piece, like where are those areas of overlap where it can really enrich the experiences of everybody? Quick answer, it's harder in natural play environments. It just is.
Yes. And you don't want a child that has limited mobility to just come in and watch everybody else play, you know.
Right.
You want to get them involved. So yeah, very good point, Jordan.
Great question. And we had a final couple of slides to talk about some future challenges and opportunities that we are thinking about, but I think now is a really great time. We've droned on for over an hour, and so we would love to hear from the audience, because one of the greatest challenges of participating in a webinar like this is that we don't get that face-to-face feedback and those social cues. And I know it's sometimes hard to engage through the Q&A, but please keep the questions coming. We'd be happy to kind of engage you in a conversation that way.
Please feel free to use that Q&A box at the bottom of your screen to type in a question you may have.
I mentioned I thought I might anticipate some crickets. Let me see if I can get maybe some other points of discussion up for us. So we did want to wrap up with more of a discussion with the participants today, and so we brainstormed on some future challenges and opportunities. And so the first slide ties into some of what Joe was saying, and I think a lot of the work that you see, the wonderful work that Lexington Parks and Recreation is doing. This is an image, and I'll give you the information right now up front. These are all of the playgrounds that are pictured in that chapter 10 of the ADA standards. These are just examples of the playgrounds that they show. And so I want to say that it's sometimes easy to be critical, because one of the shortcomings of ADA is that it's really a minimum standard for accessibility. And so focusing on the technical aspects alone over the experiential quality can often result in spaces that feel kind of sterile and are still challenging for people with disabilities to access, which leave them physically and mentally disconnected. So I think I kind of put this up, not just to kind of make fun of it, I'm not making fun of it, but just I think we can all do better and strive better. And I think Joe especially has shown you some wonderful examples of how Lexington is doing much better than this.
Yeah, Jordan, on some of these playgrounds like you're showing here, those decks and ramps add a lot of costs as well.
Yeah.
So if you don't have a finite budget like we do, a lot of times, you want to kind of get that balance too between all that decks and ramp and what the people can actually play with and do something with.
I was going to say, Joe, I see another question. We have Jacob Mason asked, have you planned on making more Miracle League type fields for other sports like soccer, football, or others?
Not yet, but we're certainly open to it. Yeah, we've not been approached by anyone to do that, but we would certainly be open to do it. Yes.
Can you tell?
We are our natural areas at McConnell Springs. we just got a new project to design a totally inclusive trail. So, using Braille, trying to hit on all those sensories. So that's going to be a nice, challenging project for us coming up.
Questions are rolling in now.
Wait, Ryan, do you want to? We do have a question, and the question is, what is the average cost for an average playground? Just curious.
Well, for us, we have community parks and neighborhood parks. Community parks being the larger parks, and those playgrounds tend to, we want to put more into those. They get a larger budget. So, for example, the Shiloh Playground Park and the Jacobson Playground Park, I think those budgets were up close to $500,000 on those, especially when you add the PIP and the different levels, things like that. So, and then the neighborhood parks are from about 150,000 to 200.
Thank you, Joe. We have another question, and the question is there a resource or website that parents can use to find playgrounds that have certain accessibility or characteristics?
Yes, we have a Parks and Recreation website that lists our playgrounds. And certainly if you can't find it there, then please reach out to us. So you can probably just call 311 and ask for myself or the Planning and Design Office, and we can help steer you in that direction or give you the information you need.
I was just going to build off of that comment. I just changed slides so you could see should be a slide now of the website for Harper's Playground. And this is an organization, it's based in the Pacific Northwest, so they don't have projects here in Kentucky, though there are plenty of examples that Joe's talked about locally. And I know of another one near Winchester that's been recently constructed as well. But it's a great question. Like, is there kind of a central clearinghouse where you can find out information, just like you might be able to go out and find a certain trail that you're looking for? Is there some sort of clearinghouse? I'm unaware of it, but I did want to share for those of you who might be looking for those kinds of accessible play spaces or interested in having them in your communities. There are lots of organizations that have popped up over the past 10, 20 years, often tied to or connected to a family that might have a child with a disability, and they will go out and establish a foundation with the purpose and goal and kind of mission of creating accessible playgrounds. And this is just one of many examples of those kinds of organizations that are out there. And this one in particular focuses on trying to create tying back to that initial question, a particular emphasis on accessible universal access, but also more integration of natural components as well. And then I see there's another one from Juliet that's, what are the main barriers in encouraging designers and parks and cities to design and build more imaginative play spaces that are inclusive and accessible?
Is that one for me?
I think that might be more you. And I went back to this slide because it was something we touched on earlier, just like, who are we trying to reach? And I remember our conversation with you and Michelle a little while ago. You have to meet ADA, but then there are so many other things to have to kind of think about and anticipate. So I don't know if that might be a good way for you to talk about some of the challenges. Yeah.
Well, other than budget, we since we're a municipality designing for everyone, there are certain when we want to meet these these design intentions that you lay out, and certainly want to be inclusive. But you know, there's the aspect of safety. You know, that's a big barrier. You know, like you said earlier, it's easy. Using the pre-engineered pieces are, you know, they are designed to meet all those safety needs too. But you know, per site, we have to look at it, you know, for access in the overall site. And some of the natural, we did try a lot of natural play pieces at Jacobson, other than you know, the built ones, like putting in boulders and stuff like that. But our people in safety here at the city had us go out and grind down the edges, things like that. That you know, that they really picked up on, that you know, are inherent out in the natural world. But you know, when you put them in a playground situation, you've really got to be careful of that, because of all the different users and our liability on that.
There aren't inspectors that go out into the woods and check logs and rocks
Yeah,
and things like
right.
that, but they do come and they will, you know, call you out if you're not meeting their standards appropriately.
Right.
I think there's 2 additional questions.
We,
Three.
Yeah, we've got this next question is, how has the reception been to these more accessible playgrounds and architecture? Has there been any pushback or criticism?
No. You know, no, I haven't heard of any pushback on being inclusive. It's just something that that when you build it, they come. You know, it's just a natural thing now to have playgrounds that can be enjoyed by all. From my perspective, I have not seen that.
I can think of like a personal example that comes to mind. You have probably, some of you in the audience may have been to a playground where you have the big kind of almost like dish or disc type swings. And those are one of those examples of a universal design that's meant to help people who might be in a wheelchair. As Joe said earlier, if you don't have the core strength to use a traditional swing, then these allow that swinging and vestibular movement. And I will tell you that if you go to, for example, Woodland Park in central Lexington, you will see kids piling on that swing, pushing themselves around. And it's something that these elements that were intended for trying to make more accessible opportunities for particular subset of the population, it's incredibly popular with everyone and all kids.
That's true. In the one spinning climber that I highlighted at Valley Park, that's a very popular piece that gets over 40 kids on it at a time. You know, so it's you know, kids find a way to play together and make things work. So you know, when we present them with these pieces, they take to them readily. So it's fun to see.
And just a little bit of the historical perspective, when you think back to the passage of the ADA and how many decades of effort and activism it took to get there, there was criticism and there was pushback because the government felt that it was going to be far too expensive. And that is a legitimate constraint on these kinds of projects. But I think all of us are coming to a place to recognize that, you know, when you think back to the beginning of the presentation about universal design, it benefits all of us. It makes it easier. It makes it more engaging and accessible for everyone. And so to not think that you're serving just a particular subset of people, it really benefits all users.
Absolutely.
Excellent.
There's another really good question for you, Joe. When designing playgrounds in Lexington, do individuals with a disability or family members of an individual with a disability participate in the design process?
Yes, they do. Yes. And, you know, that's what at the end of my presentation, that's what I said. You know, we like to be challenged, and we have met on site with people with disabilities, and talk to them and to how we can improve inclusivity and their ability to enjoy the playground too. So yes, we do that.
This next question is mulch a barrier for wheelchair accessibility as compared to poured in place? Do you also turn to mulch or PIP as the typical park foundation? And my senior thesis included a community garden and used pea pebble as wheelchair accessible paths. And I can talk to this a little bit specifically at the park that I shared, McGuffey Park. We used 5R, which is an engineered mulch surface, which I mentioned is meant to kind of knit together, but it requires, you need to have adequate drainage. And you also need to rake it regularly to keep it relatively smooth and uniform. And oftentimes it will depress or kind of compress over time, and it has to be topped off periodically. So there's kind of definitely a maintenance regime that goes along with it. Mm-hmm. Something like pea gravel, I do not think would be an accessible surface. There are other materials that we actually originally proposed for the perimeter path was a stabilized stone dust, which has a special stabilizing compound that is mixed in with a dry stone dust, and it's meant to keep that material that has an interesting different textural quality in place. But I will tell you, like, some of the challenges as designers, like, we have lots of lessons that we learn along the way, and that was a lesson for us on that park. As much as we love the look and feel of that, when rain hit it, it maybe wasn't mixed in the proper way, but it eventually had to be pulled out because it was too much of a maintenance issue, and it was replaced by permeable pavers. So specifically, I think pea pebble wouldn't work. You might find a more recent generation of like a stabilized stone dust that could. Joe, I'm not sure if you have experience. The mulch is hard. I think it's really hard to successfully maintain accessibility, even with the engineered mulch, but I'll hand it off to you.
Yeah. No, this is true. And the stone, I keep wanting to use stone paths. We just haven't gotten there yet. I thought I had one at a smaller park just because I wanted that feel, you know, the feel of the natural stone. And like you were talking about, it's just a different feel. Like you mentioned, the engineered wood fiber, it does have to be replenished. And if there's not a barrier, like a landscape fiber or landscape cloth or a material there between the soil and the wood chips, and there's not drainage, it does break down pretty quick. It can also get grass and mold if it you know, over time. So it does have to be raked and treated as a living system. So the PIP is definitely more long term, but even with our climate, from our first PIP installation, we've had to go back and around the edges where it does meet concrete or other hard surfaces, it can pull away from that over time and leave a gap that's, you know, renders it not very accessible.
It should probably also be pointed out that your user group in these playgrounds, while all spaces experience weathering, hundreds, if not thousands of kids may be the ultimate test of material upkeep. So kids are hard on things, and they'll put the materials to the test. Let's just say that.
Yeah, and you do get wear surfacing or surface wear at those high impact places, like at the end of a slide,
right,
or maybe under swing or something like that. It's places you may have to go back and replenish or rework.
We do have some attendees from outside of who live outside of Fayette County, like Scott County, Jefferson County. Okay. Do you have a sense of what the inclusive playgrounds in are there other areas besides Fayette County? Just thinking across the state.
Yeah.
No, Legacy Grove Park in Winchester. I think, Jordan, did you mention that one?
That's the one I was thinking of. I don't think I said the name, but yeah, Legacy Grove is a great one.
Yeah. Oh, there's a big one in Owensboro. That's really cool. It's on the river, Smothers Park in Owensboro.
Mm.
I mean, I think that was done with a federal grant. I think it was $1 million plus because there's manufactured trees that you can walk through on a second level. But yeah, that's one that's really cool that's out there that I've seen.
Trying to think regionally. I know, Jordan, I don't know if you visited all the parks that are inclusive in the parklands of Floyd's Fork in eastern Jefferson County. I know they have a series of play spaces. I can't comment to the accessibility of them, but they do have it's like a necklace of parks, and I'm sure several of those have play spaces associated with them.
Definitely. Yeah, I don't know them by name as much either, but yeah, that would be a really good resource. And I'm trying to think of some, probably in the northern Kentucky, Cincinnati region, you'd have some luck as well, but I don't know names off the top of my head, but I know, I can't remember now. We have an alumni who works for a county parks in southern Ohio near Cincinnati, and I know that they do some great work in that area as well.
Yes.
Do we have other questions from our attendees?
Oh, actually, I'm on the Parkland site now, and they actually have a database you can put in accessibility, and it will show you the spaces, including play spaces that are accessible. So that's nice.
And also in the chat, someone mentioned that there's going to be a new accessible park in Lincoln County, but it might just be for a school. That was another comment.
Do we have any other questions for our presenters? Oh, okay. Hearing no further questions. Jordan, were you about to?
I was just going to say those were wonderful questions, and it was great to be able to engage with the audience members. Thank you for those.
Yes.
Absolutely.
And hopefully you know where to find us if you have any follow-up. You can find us here at University of Kentucky, where Ryan and I are in the landscape architecture department, and Joe gave you his contact information at Parks.
As advertised, this has been great. This has been amazing. Thank you so much. It's been an honor and a privilege for y'all to join us today. I want to thank everyone, the presenters and the attendees, for joining us today. Be well.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you, Joe. Be
Thanks.
well and stay safe.
Thanks.
Thank you very much.
No, too.